Next qualifications the text discusses is Uparama or Uparati. These are both synonymous. He says, Uparamaha kaha swadharmanushtanameva. So Uparama, very beautiful qualification. So it is withdrawing. Uparama is the sense of withdrawing, sense of desisting from doing something. There are two ways of understanding this Uparama. Two ways of understanding, and it is very, very interesting. Both the ways are totally opposed to each other. So contextually, actually, we take the meaning. In this particular text, a certain meaning is given, but that same word, this is the thing in Sanskrit, one word can mean totally opposite thing depending on the context. Uparama is such a word, but generally we take it as doing that which is the right thing, the correct thing to do in a certain place, time, and situation. Uparama means having that ability to desist from doing the wrong thing. And why does that help us in life? We have to ask. Always ask yourselves, well, what is it in what is there for me in this? If I practice this value, what is there for me? It is only when you see the value of the value that it will become valuable to you. So we have to see what is it that is going to, practicing this value, how is it going to help me in my life? First of all, it will help you by doing the right thing, by being not confused, doing the wrong thing. You avoid inner mental conflict. That's his number one result of practicing Uparama Uparati. We avoid that inner mental conflict. Many times you may have seen in your life as well, when you don't know the right thing to do, that is even more difficult to actually handle than actually taking action. We're paralyzed, like Arjuna was in the first chapter. He was totally paralyzed, immobile. He could not do anything because he didn't know what to do. So that type of paralysis that we have in life when we don't know what the right thing to do, that can be avoided by learning this value, by inculcating this qualification in our minds. And the second thing, mental conflict means to avoid the knower and doer split. Knower-doer split I create. We've seen this. There are three of us. There are three people in us. What are these three people in everybody? There is the knower, the thinker, the person who knows, with the conscience. You know that inbuilt mechanism, which is called dharma. Ishvara's manifestation in each heart is called dharma. Everybody has Ishvara manifesting in the form of dharma in their heart. And what does dharma teach us? I know what is right. I know what is wrong. Intrinsically, I don't need to go to a school to be taught what is right and wrong. How do we know it? We know it because it's built in. That is called conscience. Most human beings have a conscience. Of course, there are exceptions to every rule. So we know there are people who cover their conscience, or their conscience is very, very thickly covered by layers and layers of raga dvesha. So they're not able to see what is the right thing to do, or they're not able to see what they lose by doing the wrong thing. Swami Dayananda used to beautifully say, real maturity is not always doing the right thing. That is not really the sign of emotional maturity. The sign of emotional maturity is to see again and again the immense loss by doing the wrong thing. When you do the wrong thing, what is that loss you face? Again, the inner mental conflict is one. But if you really believe in the law of karma, there for every action, even if nobody's watching and you do the wrong thing, you're thinking, nobody's watching. Somebody is watching. Maybe human beings are not watching. Maybe even the fly in the room is not watching, but you're still doing the wrong thing. And that action immediately, according to the law of this universe, the law called dharma and karma, these laws go together. What happens? There is an invisible result that goes into your checking account. And who is keeping that account? That account keeper is given the name Chitragupta in our Shastra. Is actually personified. He is the divine accountant, okay? He is very, very clever. He will not let anything go past him. He knows it is said, he knows every single jiva's account very well. And he and Lord Yama are said to work together. I mean, these are Puranic stories, but very interesting, symbolic. So Chitragupta, Lord Yama work together. They know what the account is in store. If it's time to go, Chitragupta is going to tell Yama, okay, go and get that jiva. Yes, time for that jiva to go. The time is up. So this is how, the law of karma works. And uparati means doing the right thing, because not out of fear, but you are very cautious. You don't want to create papa karma. Why? Because papa karma, adrishta, that unseen result of any wrong action is definitely 100% going to manifest in your life as what? Unpleasant result in your life. You're going to suffer. Any suffering, any sorrow is only because of adrishta, papa manifesting for us. Very clear. So this is uparati, is a very important qualification to prevent further disturbance by protecting the shama that you have gained already, practicing the previous two values. So when mastery through alertness has been, gained, then this uparati becomes very natural. It is an automatic withdrawal. Withdrawal from what? Unnecessary pursuits and desires. You don't have to force yourself to withdraw from external. It just happens automatically. You'll find, that when the shama dhamma has been practiced to a certain level in your life, uparati becomes very natural. Things that you took liking to before, you wanted to do this, wanted to do that, so many desires on the list, suddenly everything becomes calm. Suddenly everything becomes peaceful, and you feel like, I just like to sit with myself. I'd like to, look over the Shastra, look over what I have learned, or I'd like to chant something. This type of thinking comes. So the temptation for externals subside with this uparati value. The mind naturally withdraws, and there's a peaceful abidance and acceptance of what you have to face in your life. So as I said, this word has the same word has opposite meanings dependent on context. Generally, the word uparati, the meaning given for uparati is sannyasa or renunciation. It is a life of withdrawal. Ability to be with oneself is what? Sannyasa, actually. Any sannyasi, why people take sannyas is that they want to be alone with jnanam. They want to pursue spiritual life fully. 100% committed to spiritual life is what is the real meaning of sannyasa. Now, of course, people have other reasons for taking sannyasa. That is another issue. But the real issue envisaged in our scriptures for taking to the ochre robes is what? That you will pursue a life exclusively for spiritual knowledge, for the discovery of the spiritual truth. So it is a life of withdrawal. It is an ability to be with oneself. Taking to ochre robes and then going out socializing and everything doesn't work. That is also not a sannyasi lifestyle. A sannyasi has to learn that the sky is the roof, the floor, the earth is the pillow. We see in Bhaja Govinda, very beautiful text. There's a verse there, total vairagya. You don't know when the food is going to come. You should trust the Lord. The order comes. There's no medical insurance. There's no life insurance. There's no insurance at all. You're not insured at all. No body part is insured. Bhagavan will take care. That is the vritti of a sannyasi. It's a beautiful life, but very, very difficult to live. People think it's very easy not to sit and do nothing. It is not easy at all to sit and do nothing. We should do a test. One weekend, sit and do nothing at all. No action, just sit, just do japa. See, that is the life of a sannyasi, to actually sit and do nothing. So this, all roles are renounced in sannyasa. All the roles are renounced. You're no longer mother, you're no longer father, no longer brother, husband, wife, nothing. All the roles are gone. So it is not for the majority. So there's a second option that is given for uparama. The second reading for uparama, which this text gives, is swadharma anushtanam, equal to the renunciation of a sannyasi. That is the beauty of this knowledge, beauty of the scriptures. They've given an equivalent to that type of renunciation. What is that? A karma yogi is also a type of a sannyasi. A person who lives a karma yoga lifestyle is also a renunciate. How? How do you say it's a renunciate? Because you don't clamor for the results of your actions. It is a renunciation of karma palam. It is not physical renunciation here. You're not wearing ochre robes, but what is a karma yogi's thinking? Karma yogi's thinking is, everything I do in my life, my work becomes worship. It is arpana for Bhagavan. Anything I do, I think of Bhagavan first and I offer that action to Bhagavan at the altar of Bhagavan. like you offer a flower to Bhagwan, like you offer Naivedyam to Bhagwan, and you offer that work, your life to Bhagwan. And what do you get in return? You're not bothered about. That's renunciation. That is tough. It is not easy to live a Karma Yogi lifestyle either. We always expect something. We want that thing to happen. We want Bhagwan. Oh, generally, even people who go to temples, I'll give you this, I give you $500. I'll break a coconut, but you have to make sure I pass this exam. Yeah, we do business with Bhagwan in temples. Most people go and do business. I will do this. I will do 108 pradakshinas, but you have to heal my broken leg. You have to heal my broken leg because I want to learn to drive. There will always be some condition put for Bhagwan, right? It is very natural. Human thinking is like that, tit for tat. I give, you scratch my back, I scratch yours. Even with Bhagwan, we do it. Yeah, I scratch your back, Bhagwan. I come to the temple and I break a coconut, and then you have to reciprocate. You have to give me what I want. But Karma Yoga is not like that. Karma Yogi, what does a Karma Yogi say? Yes, I do want that. Yes, I do think of it. It is a desire. We don't deny our desires. We have that desire. But the thinking of a Karma Yogi is that result is in your hands, Bhagwan. You can manifest it if you want. You can manifest it at this time. It is in your hands. You are the one who chooses when to manifest the result of the action. But I have done my duty. I have 100% put my effort in. I'm not going to do slapshot jobs in my life because everything is an offering. So 100% you still put in. Even if you don't get the result that you want, you still keep putting 100%. That is the life of a Karma Yogi. And the text here, he says, this is a lifestyle, Uparati, where all roles are retained. You see, the first meaning of Uparati is all roles are renounced. Here, all your roles are retained. You still remain mother. You still remain brother. You still remain father. You still remain husband. You still remain wife. All your roles are retained, but your renunciation is in the form of the results of action. So it is the karma palam is left for the Lord to decide. Anyway, it is, if we objectively look, if we logically analyze, it is the Lord's hands anyway. Who are we to claim the result? It is in his hands. Many times in our lives, things happen. We are not in charge of what is going to manifest in our life. Nobody controls, nobody calls all the shots. So you just imagine, actually, it is total imagination, 100% imagination that you are the cause for what manifests. So what is to be done in a given situation by a certain person also differs from person to person. We cannot just put everybody in one category. This is the beauty of Vedic, the Vedic lifestyle. We cannot put everybody in one box. In a given situation, what is unfolding for you, you have to do. That is your swadharma. It is called your dharma. Other person, you cannot you cannot impose your dharma on somebody else. That is not right as well. Say, no, I'm doing this, you also have to do like this. No, that is, again, everybody has their own swadharma unfolding as well. And there is a guideline given in the Veda of how the action should be done in your life. Even that is structured in the Veda. You see, Veda gives a structure for your life. It gives a structure for living. A structureless life is a damaging life. A structureless life is very, very damaging. We all need some kind of structure. We need some kind of discipline, self-discipline in our life. And Vedic lifestyle gives that. It gives you a structure. Whether you choose to follow it or not is your choice. But the structure is there, and people have followed it and they have benefited from it as well. So what is success in Vedic times? It is very different from modern era definition of success. In Vedic lifestyle, performing your duty well is success. This is Uparati. Swadharma Anushtanam. Performing your duty well is the 100%, that is success. It doesn't matter whether you're a road sweeper. It doesn't matter whether you're a billionaire CEO. Your performance of that duty that you're given, allotted in your life, is success, if you perform it as a Karma Yogi. And what happens when you perform your duty properly? You grow, self-growth. There are 3 steps here to spiritual knowledge. Self-growth, emotional maturity. Self-growth, emotional maturity leads to self-purification, which is mental self-purification, meaning mental purification. mentally purified person has every chance of self-discovery. So self-growth to self-purification to self-discovery. This is the life that the Veda envisages for every single being. So when you grow, self-growth means what? You become an emotionally mature person. That subjectivity, me, that dies down more and more. Everything, generally, everything's lumped on me. Anything that happens, it comes down to me. Somebody doesn't look at me, what have I done? They may have some other problem in their mind as well, but it always like, what have I done? Somebody doesn't call me, what have I done? So that me thinking is, again, like a child. If you see children, before they develop, there's only there's only the need for their own raga dveshas to be fulfilled. That is, we all have that inner child in us. That is what Shastra says. Everybody has an inner child. And that reaction in life is not the adult you reacting. It is the inner child that comes out. There is a child there which has not been fulfilled. So that child throws tantrums as an adult as well. So everybody is an adult throwing tantrums, actually. And this is what we have to recognize, that that child has to grow. We have to nurture that child. There are techniques to do that, actually, even online, in the psychology, they say, nurture the inner child. It is important to nurture, to make that child feel accepted. That is called emotional maturity, because when you're an emotional mature person, you can take adult decisions. You don't take childish decisions based on emotions. Child will always base decisions on emotions. And that is why, children do often do the wrong thing. They don't know. If they like something, they'll just go after it, right? They don't sit and analyze what is the consequence of my action like that. That buddhi has not kicked in. So that is what we have to do with this self-growth means emotional maturity. And that emotional mature person, immediately that self-purification will happen. And self-purification, what is a sign of self-purification? The more and more peaceful you become, the more and more pure your mind is. The more and more peaceful you become, the more and more, you're sane, you're more balanced. You don't react so much. You're in a level playing ground, level. And everything about you don't go up, very much up, you don't go very much down. Of course, you enjoy certain things that happen, but you don't go elated and you don't go depressed as well. So this yo-yo lifestyle, self-purification means that when your mind is still and calm, your mind is a pure mind. A pure mind is a sattvic mind. And a sattvic mind is like a lake. Shastra says it is like a lake, pure lake. I don't know whether you've seen, but once I think I've said this before, but I always remember that scene, traveling in the US. And there was this traveling through Yellowstone National Park, very beautiful park, very, very nice, the natural reserve there. And there were some mountains there and there's lake, such a peaceful lake, not even a ripple on that lake. So you don't know where the horizon is. You don't know where the mountains are or where the lake is. It is that reflective, that much reflective of anything that is, reflecting in it. That is how a sattvic mind is. It is said there are no ripples of thought. Even if thought comes, they don't create disturbances in a sattvic mind. So that is the type of mind we're aiming for. And that is not the be all and end all of life either. We think many people stop there. They think, if I got this type of mind, finished. Now I've attained it. Many traditions, many spiritual places, they stop at this place. No, our Shastra says that is only the preparation for the final knowledge. When you get that type of mind, self-discovery is the next thing. So jnanam eva mokshaha, peaceful mind is the way to see the self very, very clearly, because it's reflected. The reflection is very clear. You can see yourself very clearly. So Atma Jnanam is the final end. And success, as I said, in Vedic lifestyle was envisaged as Antakarana Shuddhi was the success of those days as well. Because it was clear to people of those times, Vedic times, this is what I need for moksha. And all I need for Antakarana Shuddhi is what? To manage my likes and dislikes, dilute my likes and dislikes. This is what Uparama Uparati does. By doing what is to be done, you dilute your likes. You don't always do what I like to do. I want to do this, I do it. I don't want to do this, I don't do it. I want to do this, I do it. That's what everybody lives like that. You're much more intelligent in your life. You know, even if you don't like something, yes, there's a lot of washing in the sink. I know because I left it there. I have a lot of washing I have to do. There's a lot of washing in the sink. What am I going to do? I don't like to do it, but I'm going to do it. It is to be done. It is not good to leave, a full sink in the night. It's always nice to leave a clean kitchen as well. That is also, cleanliness, shaucham, we saw a value. So I don't like to do certain things. I don't procrastinate. Procrastination, Bhagavan says in Bhagavad Gita, is one of the worst qualities to have. No, I'll do it tomorrow. I'll do it the next day. I'll do it another day. It is very, very damaging for a person to have that type of buddhi. It is actually tamas, procrastination, and not just for spiritual life. For you look at your employment, your job, and everything. If you constantly procrastinate in life, you cannot really achieve much. In fact, a wise person, it is said, does what is to be done tomorrow today. There's a Subhashitam, I'll find it. There's a Subhashitam in Sanskrit saying, a really wise person does what is to be done tomorrow today, which means what? They don't put anything off. Everything that is meant to be done is done in its proper time as well.